Mr. President, through you, I thank the senator for having yielded the time, and would just conclude with the statement that, yes, I would like to vote on a bill that includes all of our respective counties. I would love to vote on a bill that repealed this tax for all, including municipalities, including taxpayers, including large taxpayers, inside and outside New York City, in the suburbs. I think that would be fantastic. And I hope that we have the opportunity to do that, whether this year or next year, where we can reach consensus and do that. And I would hope that the great senator from Westchester can work with the great senators from Long Island, and we can work together towards that. But I will vote in favor of repealing this tax and repealing this fee wherever it happens to be proposed. And hopefully next year it's proposed for Suffolk County and for Nassau County and for Queens County and for the Bronx and for Staten Island and for Manhattan. And yes, we can get this done for Westchester as well. I hope we have the opportunity to vote for those repeals as a House, in this House and in the other House, and we can actually make a statement that we're pulling back all of the taxes that were imposed on our taxpayers. But this is a step in the right direction. It's a positive step. And yes, if it is in one House, then let's make that statement together, and make that statement in preparation for the opportunity to do a broader bill next year and send a message on both sides of the aisle, in both houses, that it's time that we repeal these fees once and for all. So I will be voting yes, and I thank Senator Serino for having put this bill forward. And yes, I'd like to have seen a much broader bill, but it's a step in the right direction. Let's be positive about this. Let's support this in the hopes that we can get a broader bill next year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Martins was on the bill. Senator Laval.
Thank you, Senator Martins, for pointing out some good things that you just said, and I want to kind of come on top of what you just said. I think the other side has heard over and over again that they created a terrible, terrible tax. So each one of us, and it's a shame that we're not coordinated, but I don't know how many members in the 12-county region have bills to repeal the whole thing, a part of the thing. I have bills to do that, and other members also. So it's a shame that we're not coordinated to do this in a way to eliminate it from the community colleges. I think we did the hospitals, and on and on and on. We certainly did it for our school districts. So I'm going to support the bill because it is another member taking a piece out of what is an evil, something that should not stand. And I hope we can build forward for those of us who are here in the next session to just get rid of this tax, that it is onerous, evil, bad, and I am going to vote in the affirmative.
Seeing no other member wishing to be heard, the debate is now closed. We're laying this aside. When the bill will be laid aside temporarily. Senator DeFrancisco.
Okay, thank you.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 1317 by Senator Ritchie, Senate Print 7937, an act to authorize.
Senator DeFrancisco.
Bill aside for the day.
Bill is laid aside for the day.
Now, if we can now go to, I think that completes that calendar. We can now go to calendar 54A and go to the controversial reading, please.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 1768 by Senator Hannan, Senate Print 5566A, an act to amend the public health law. Hannan, 7.
Yes, that's to be laid aside for the day, please.
Bill will be laid aside for the day.
That's the bill you wanted laid aside for the day.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 1770 by Senator Golden, Senate Print 5701A, an act to amend the tax law.
Senator Kruger, why do you rise?
Excuse me. To clear my throat first. On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Kruger on the bill.
So Senator Golden and I have debated this bill multiple years. So we decided not to debate tonight because it's now 9:15. And I would just reissue my objection to the bill. We have a problem with an antiquated tax stamp system in this state, and other states have resolved their problem by going to a modern digital form of tax stamp. It turns out the company doing this very successfully is actually located in New York State, I believe in Senator Kennedy's district, and yet we don't ever see bills to try to do the right thing with tax stamps in our state. We just keep seeing a bill that increases the reimbursement to companies putting the old useless stamps on so that they can earn more for doing nothing different. Then we further allow in this bill a very unusual gifting almost of cheaper cigarettes to the same company. So if law enforcement does find unstamped black market cigarettes, they are supposed to notify the manufacturer of the cigarettes. Sometimes the company comes and takes them back or destroys them. But under this bill, if they did not do so, the state of New York would allow these same tax stamp companies to buy the cigarettes per package at a radical reduction in price, turn around, stamp it, and sell it for full value. There's something very wrong with this approach to a bill for a specific set of businesses. There's something very wrong with New York State never moving forward on doing what we ought to do with a modernized tax stamp system on package of cigarettes if we actually do want to ensure that cigarettes are being correctly taxed, the revenue is going to the right places, there's not black market cigarettes being sold. Again, other states have figured this out. They're doing the right thing. Every year, we don't do that, but every year, I think, we get a variation on this bill that's a win for a small number of companies at the expense of everyone else. I vote no, Mr. President.
Seeing no other member wishing to be heard, the debate is now closed, and the bill will be laid aside temporarily. Senator DeFrancisco? Okay, Secretary will read.
Calendar number 1803 by the Senate Committee on Rules, Senate Print 8090, enact amending the Emergency Housing Rent Control Law.
Senator Squadron, why do you rise?
Would Senator Rules yield for some questions, Mr. President?
I'm sorry, Senator, why do you rise?
Would Senator Rules yield for some questions, Mr. President?
There is no
I'm
Senator
Young,
Rules
and
in the
I'd be
chamber.
happy to yield for some questions.
Senator, which senator would you like to address?
I thank Senator Young for standing
Senator Young?
on behalf of the bill. As pointed out by the clerk, this bill is sponsored by the Senate Committee on Rules. I appreciate Senator Young responding to questions. Through you, Mr. President, if Senator Young would tell me how many pages this bill introduced by Senator Rules is.
Through you, Mr. President, I'd like to explain what this bill actually does. And it corrects a technical error. It is a chapter amendment that is needed to clean up Chapter 20 of the laws of 2015 regarding high rent vacancy decontrol. And so it's just what happens here sometimes that we need a technical amendment to clean up bill and some of the legislation that we pass. And the laws of 2015, Mr. President, were agreed upon by the governor, by the Assembly, by the Senate. The language is agreed upon. And basically, what we're trying to improve today is this section of the law that is ambiguous, it's confusing, it's out of concert with the rest of the law regarding preferential rent. It actually is confusing and out of concert with the practices and the interpretation of the Division of Housing and Community Renewal. And so we're just trying to clarify the issue, get everything in concert, get everything in the right direction, and just to make it less confusing. So it's just a basic technical cleanup bill.
The sponsor would yield.
The sponsor continue
Sure.
to yield. Sponsor yields.
All right, great. As described as a technical cleanup bill, how many pages long is it?
It's actually 6 pages long.
Sponsor will continue to yield.
Sure.
Okay. And in those 6 pages, what is the change to the law? There's a whole lot of text in those 6 pages, obviously. If Senator Young, on behalf of this rules bill, would just point to the actual changes in the words of the statute in the
Sure,
bill.
I'd be glad to, and it's actually just sprinkled throughout the bill. And again, it's just a technical cleanup, but if you see on the first page, line 21, there are 2 words that would be struck, that was. On page 2, line 39, 2 words, that was. On page 3, line 30, 2 words, that was. On page 4, line 14, where such. On page 4, line 15, was struck. On page 4, line 28, that was, 2 words that are struck. On page 5, line 52, prior to vacancy, that are removed, and that's the end of it.
Thank you. If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
It seems clear that there's a change in, as we see from page 4 and throughout, there's a change from one tense to another pretty consistently that's being modified in this bill. The sponsors referred to it as a technical cleanup change. Not the sponsor, forgive me.
Through you, Mr. President, it is a technical cleanup change, and basically it puts the language, reverts the language to the laws of 1997, the laws of 2003, the laws of 2011, and so basically it just makes it consistent, and that was the agreement. And the law should be consistent, it should be continuous, because that was the agreement. And again, this is a technical cleanup. It brings all sections of the law into the same compliance and eliminates confusion, eliminates ambiguity, and it's just a very, very, basically a routine bill, because we do these technical cleanup chapter amendments all the time, as this House knows.
And forgive me, I mean to correct myself. I refer to Senator Young as the sponsor, so correct me. I apologize, but Senator Young described a technical cleanup bill that seems to change the tense. Is Senator Young contending that this would have no impact on which units are covered by rent regulation and which units are no longer covered by rent regulation because they have been subject to vacancy decontrol?
Let me be clear, through you, Mr. President, let me be clear. This does not in any way reopen rent regulation. This is just consistent with the agreement and the bill that was passed. And so there are no changes. As we know, the Division of Housing and Community Renewal continues to interpret the law in the same manner that it has for the past 20 years, almost 20 years, since 1997. And so this is just bringing everything into compliance, eliminating any confusion and any ambiguity.
Senator Young would continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
In that answer, Senator Young said there are no changes. So I just want to be clear. Senator Young's understanding of Senator Rules' bill that there would be no change in which units are covered by rent regulation and which units are subject to vacancy deregulation.
Through you, Mr. President, as you know, Senator Squadron, the agreement that was struck in 2015 regarding rent and high rent vacancy decontrol was that the threshold was raised from $2,500 to $2,700 per month. That threshold remains the same, and so this isn't reopening of the rent. This is abiding by that agreement that was put into place, that it was agreed upon by both houses and the governor, and so we're just making some amendments to some technical errors that were in the bill, and like I said, that's very routine for this House.
If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Does the sponsor
Yes.
yield? Sponsor yields.
I understand from that answer that clearly this bill of Senate rules may very well impact units. Let me ask,
Excuse me, Senator Squadron, one moment. Can we have order in the House, please? Thank
Senator
you.
Squadron, I would just like to clarify because
Sorry.
that was not the answer that I gave. So I know that you did this during the budget process too, where you tried to put words in my mouth, but please, let's stick to what I say and not try to change what my answer was.
if the sponsor will continue to yield.
Does
Yes.
the sponsor continue? Sponsor yields.
Forgive me, it is in no way my intention to put words into your mouth or speak for Senator Rules for that matter. I do, though, just think that it's important to have clarity on a specific narrow question, and a direct response would be very appreciated, and I will hew to it very carefully going forward, which is simply, is it Senator Young's understanding that this bill would impact which units are covered by rent regulation and which units are subject to vacancy deregulation?
Through you, Mr. President, no, it would not, because this is just clarifying, taking out ambiguity, but it's adhering to the agreement that was put in place by the governor, the Assembly, and the state Senate. It puts it in exact compliance with the other sections of the bill, especially the parts regarding preferential rent, and it also puts it in compliance with the long-standing practice through the Division of Housing and Community Renewal as to the interpretation of the law, how it's managed, and so, no, it wouldn't change anything. And by the way, Mr. President, I'm glad to hear Senator Squadron talk about how important it is to have clarity, because that is exactly the intention of this technical amendment that we have before us tonight, is that it is important to have clarity, and that's what this legislation does.
If Senator Young would continue to, excuse me, if Senator Young would continue to yield.
Yes.
Senator yields.
Thank you. Just so I understand, Senator Young said that in previous versions of this act, the word "of" was used. This bill, as Senator Young pointed out, changes consistently the tense of this bill in a way that's pretty clear and pretty consistent. Just to be absolutely clear, Senator Young's contention is that that was somehow done by mistake. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, I will repeat myself again. There were some technical errors in the language of the bill. This is a chapter amendment that corrects those technical errors. This does not change how the law is being executed right now. In fact, it's consistent with how the Division of Housing and Community Renewal is interpreting the law. It's how the law is being applied now, so it doesn't change anything. It's just to correct some technical amendments, which happen now and again in this House.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So if this is just a technical amendment to get back to a three-way agreement, is this technical amendment so-called moving in the Assembly, and if so, who sponsors it?
Through you, Mr. President, I just want to make clear, too, the reason that we need to resolve this issue and pass this bill is to make sure that there aren't any issues or ambiguity in the future. We don't want confusion. We want the law to be clear. And it needs to be clear not only for the owners of buildings, but it needs to be clear for the tenants, because the tenants really need to know what the law says too. So this is to avoid any future problems. I am hopeful that the Assembly will take this legislation up in the future because this is something that's a chapter amendment and it needs to get passed.
Thank you. If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
The underlying bill, to which this is supposedly a chapter amendment, was sponsored by which member of this House?
Through you, Mr. President, as Senator Squadron knows, this bill was put in through rules. I am very happy tonight to stand on the floor and explain the bill, and you know, that's what it is. He knows it. He keeps referring to Senator rules. There is no Senator rules, but I am standing on the floor tonight to answer any question that he may have.
If Senator Young would continue to yield, I think
Will
there
the
was...
sponsor continue to yield?
I just need to clarify that question.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rent Act of 2015 was sponsored by which member of this House? Senator Young has said repeatedly this is simply a technical cleanup to that bill. That bill is relevant to this discussion. Who sponsored it?
Mr. President, off the top of my head, I could not give a definitive answer. I believe it may have been Senator Flanagan, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Squadron on the bill.
I thank Senator Young for answering questions on behalf of this bill. I'm not harping on the fact that it was introduced by the Committee on Rules for light or amusing reasons. I'm doing it because the reason this bill was introduced by the Committee on Rules is the reason so many bills are, which is Senator Rules does not need to answer for the bills that Senator Rules sponsors and passes through this House. And this is a bill that no senator who is elected would want to answer for and defend, because in fact, there is nothing technical about this bill, which is why there's no Assembly sponsor and no Assembly movement on this bill. This bill is specifically designed to take apartments that are rent regulated and put them out of regulation and take affordable units that are impacted by the Rent Act of 2015 and make them unaffordable. It is an act that is specifically designed to strip rent regulations from New Yorkers. And it is no surprise that Senator Rules is the senator that wants to stand up and be counted when that's what's needed. We don't know how many units this bill would impact, but we know that this change, which is clear, which requires consistent changes of tense throughout the bill, as Senator Young described very clearly, and I appreciate that, changes the standard for when a unit becomes deregulated. By changing that standard, it is going to vastly increase the number of units that are no longer affordable. Look, if you don't like rent regulation, if you don't think that the City of New York, which overwhelmingly supports rent regulation because it creates affordability, it preserves affordability on people's homes, then this is a good bill. And maybe if you feel that way, you should have sponsored it. However, if you believe that rent regulation has been the single most important affordability program in the city of New York and some other counties of the state, if you believe that tenants and communities support rent regulation and its expansion and strengthening because of how important it's been for the city, this bill makes no sense at all. And in fact, its sponsor, never needing to stand for election and answer for this bill, makes a lot of sense. This is a bill that only the special interests that oppose rent regulation could support. And of course, they don't have the power to introduce a bill in their own name, so instead we have Senator Rules. Do not believe that this bill is a technical amendment, and for every member of this House who is tired of my continuous focus on Senator Rules, There is no better example than this one of why Senator Rules is such a dangerous practice. Senator Rules allows bills that no elected official would introduce and support to come to this floor, to pass, and to have no elected official ever answer for them. This bill is the perfect example of that. It's why I'm going to vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Young.
Yes, Senator, just on the bill.
Senator Young on the bill.
I want to thank Senator Squadron for his remarks tonight. And while I respect his opinion, I do want to say that it is an opinion and it's not the facts. And the facts are that this is a technical amendment. It does not change the standard, as Senator Squadron contends. And so I strongly disagree with almost everything that he said tonight, but for the one statement that he did make, which was, it's important to have clarity. This bill brings clarity and is a technical amendment, and so I would urge my colleagues to vote yes.
Seeing no other member wishing to be heard, Senator Krueger.
Thank you. On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Krueger on the bill.
So Senator Young, as Senator Rules explained, she believes this is a technical correction. I would like to point out the bill was a governor's program bill carried by Senator Flanagan, carried by Assemblymember Hasty. It was a bill that was passed by both houses at the request of the governor. I don't believe the Assembly has a same-as bill, so clearly they don't think of it as a chapter amendment or a technical correction. And for the record, it would significantly change the current interpretation under law, because we've had a law now for a year that makes it clear that you cannot use someone leaving as the basis to skyrocket the rent and therefore move out of rent regulation. Now, the reason the existing law that was passed by both houses is so important is harassment of tenants in the city of New York has been skyrocketing. We have a statewide task force on tenant harassment that has been documenting case after case. People are being forced out of their apartments because the landlord believes they can skyrocket the rent when they get them out. This change in the law that took place a year ago helps to address and protect tenants in their apartments. So Senator Squadron is right. This change is not a technical change. This change would result in A, more reason to harass your tenants out, and B, significant increases in rent amounts to push apartments out of the rent regulation category. Community Service Society is one housing organization that admits it's hard to estimate how many we would have lost already had we not made the change a year ago. But the projection was we would lose 90,000 units of rent regulation in 4 years. So we're not going to lose those because we passed the law we did a year ago. And I would argue it is far, far more than a technical amendment to shift the law such that we would be seeing tens of thousands of apartments deregulated that under current law stand a chance of not being deregulated at a time of a housing crisis in the city of New York. That is my reason to vote no, Mr. President. Thank you.
Seeing no other member wishing to be heard, the debate is now closed. The Secretary will ring the bell.